Now, I want to go to The Voice. There's been a lot of talk about The Voice lately, based mainly on recent polling that shows the referendum proposal in all sorts of strife. Polling a minority, 49-51 nationally, according to one of the polls, a Resolve poll in the 9 media newspapers. Let's catch up then with Dean Parkin, who's the campaign director for Yes 23, joins us live from North Stradbroke Island. Good to talk to you again, Dean. Are you losing this debate already?
No, Chris. We think that the debate is just starting in the communities across Australia. I mean, you mentioned the polling, the Resolve poll in the 9 media. On the same day, there was a central poll released in The Guardian that said that the numbers were 60% in favour and 40% against. So the point is not to sit here and speculate about the polls. The point is to say that there are a number of different agencies that are polling at the moment. We're getting different pictures. We always knew that this was going to be a challenge. Winning referendums in our country is very difficult. But we're just focused on getting out and making sure that more Australians are getting involved with the conversation. That's where the real opportunity is in this campaign, and that's what we're certainly very much focused on.
Look, I don't want to get into wishful thinking, because you know that I've supported The Voice for a long, long while, and I wouldn't pay a lot of attention to the Resolve poll. I tend not to. I tend to follow Newspoll because it's the most reliable, and Essential has got a good body of evidence behind it too now. But if you look at all the polls, the trend is the concerning thing. The support for Yes is trending down in all of them. So, and of course, Noel Pearson, of course, the architect in many ways of The Voice, and someone you know and work with very closely, he has talked about problems in the advocacy. What is it that the Yes campaign has gotten wrong so far?
Well, I think you also have to look at the current context in which this debate is being had, Chris. The last few months has been characterised by the debate being centred in Canberra. It's been dominated by politicians and lawyers. Really, I mean, going through a necessary process. We needed to go through a process to resolve the question, to resolve the provision. But it has meant that the conversation has very much been stuck in Canberra, in that Canberra bubble. That's not where the referendum will be won. And when I'm going out across the community, which I do on a regular basis, both in Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, it's a very different conversation. So we're waiting with great anticipation for hopefully the referendum bill passing the Parliament next week. That will mean that the conversation can be shifted fully out of Canberra, taken to the communities. There are people out there that want to be involved, have questions. We want to get out there and have the conversations with them.
But Dean, the political debate and the media debate cuts through. I see politicians and people here on Sky News saying that this is racially divisive, or saying that there's not enough detail. And I hear those comments coming back to me from punters in emails and messages all the time. There has to be a clearer argument, surely, for the Yes case. For instance, you've got Peter Dutton now saying it's all about recognition and not a voice. That seems to just deny the last 20 years where we've had bipartisan agreement that there should be recognition, and the decision after lots of committees and consultation is this is the way that Indigenous Australia wants to be recognised, through the practical method of a voice. But that doesn't seem to have come across in the public argument.
It's really interesting you say that, Chris, and you know, obviously you're having your conversations. I was in Barunga in the Northern Territory last week. All 4 land councils representing the Northern Territory, 200 representatives from the most remote communities in our country, couldn't have been clearer in their advocacy, in their support for recognition through a voice. And the really interesting thing, I mean, I've been around in many communities over time, Chris. The people talking about obviously the practical need for the voice, and they're talking about it in real terms, like what affects their remote communities. These are the people right at the front edge.
We're running out of time, though, Dean. Sorry, but the point is you have to win Parramatta and Ipswich and Sunbury and Ross Trevor. You've got to win the suburbs of Australia, not remote communities.
And we know that the people in Parramatta, we know that the people in the suburbs across this country want to know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people want this. and want to know that this will have a practical impact on the ground. That's why we're so keen for the political conversation to come to an end, so we can actually start showcasing those stories and have that conversation more broadly. Good to talk to you again, Dean. Sorry to rush off. Dean Parkin there, who's the campaign director for the Yes 23 campaign.